Windgrace Log, March 10th, 2022. Today, we're discussing Season 2, Episode 2 of the Paramount Plus exclusive Star Trek Picard. And this episode's called Penance. So it pretty much picks up exactly where we left off last episode, except, with a recap. So if you are trying to catch up, I don't know why you're watching a review with spoilers, but basically what happened is they mostly got season 1 out of the way and started scratch, reassembled the crew, several different ships worth of crew, but the main characters from season 1, except for Soji. And they all went to explore some anomaly, turned out to be the Borg. The Borg Queen took over the fleet. They set self-destruct, and they blew up, except Picard woke up in an alternate version of his home, back on Earth. Q said, basically, this isn't your Earth anymore. This is a alternate outcome of things that could happen, the road not taken, all that good stuff, and then we pick up where we left off. We see right away this is a terrible version of Earth as far as climate change. It's ravaged everything. There's just shields holding it together. There's this hexagonal grid covering everything, which seems to be something these new Star Trek shows love, is hexagonal grids, shields. Everything's a hexagon, although I didn't count the sides. I guess it could be an octagon, but I think it was a hexagon. Q has a little conversation. He seems a heck of a lot more agitated than normal, and not a playful sort of guy. It seems more, I don't want to say worried, more vengeful, more loose, more angry. Yells at Picard a couple of times, actually, as you'll see in some of the pictures that are sliding through here. I don't want to say punches. I guess it was a backhand slap to Picard's face, but it makes his nose bleed. Not sure how I feel about that. Again, I'm thinking, based on what we discovered last episode, that it might have something to do with the conversation he had with Guinan, and this is all a ploy to kind of teach Picard that there are other important things in his life, probably love, all that stuff. Not sure if that's where it's going anymore, but I do still think that's probably where they're going, because this seems like the hell of a way to do that. Obviously, this is not the nice Starfleet Federation Earth we're normally used to. It's called the Confederation, just because I wanted to figure it out. I looked it up. Confederate just means they're joined by an agreement or a treaty, where Federate or the Federation means that there's a lot of individual parts, but they come together to serve a whole. So I'm guessing this is more of a, top-down rule type thing. Everyone's part of the whole, but they're not really. There's no autonomy. There's no states. There's no, representatives and all that stuff. It's basically, this is what it is, and we're in charge of everything. Also, by the way, this is Penance. That means voluntary self-punishment or repentance. So when Q said this is Picard's penance, that doesn't necessarily mean Q is putting him in some sort of situation to pay. Penance is self-imposed. It's voluntary. So in one way or another, this is supposedly Picard's doing at least what we're led to believe by what Q says. The conversation with Q kind of devolves into the violence, like I mentioned before. The song that plays translates from the French to basically, no, I do not regret anything. So, that's kind of apt to what's going on, pretty on-the-nose stuff. Then we go in to see basically the trophy room of Picard, similar to what we saw in, I think it was the second episode of Season 1, where he went to Starfleet, opened up his storage unit, for lack of a better word, and saw the Picard Day banner, a bunch of things we had seen earlier in the show, except this turns out to be his collection of people and things he's either killed or stolen, it looks like. So some of the, there's a heck of a lot of callbacks and Easter eggs here. I think probably a little too much as far as, hey, here's a lot of characters from Star Trek that we're just gonna, not even background people, a lot of main players, here they are. So you see a Cardassian chest plate, some armor, some Hirogen armor, some Jat Vash stuff, guns, disruptors, swords, daggers, knives, things like that. And you also see some other guns that I couldn't really make out the names on. A couple of them looked Zindi, maybe some Riemann stuff in there. Just a lot of callbacks to weapons and stuff we've seen before. Then we go ahead and see a bunch of skulls. You'll also see some of those in the pictures. There's a Ferengi, there's a Borg. And then they go over and specifically tell us that the Cardassian skull was Gul Dukat. Obviously from DS9 fame, the big bad there, also sometimes good guy. And then Q mentions that is how Picard lost his real body and became a synthetic in this timeline. Not sure how I feel about that. I was really feeling like they were going to go the route of he's back in his real body in this, and whenever things get set back to right, he will stay in a purely organic body, but no, he's in a synth body here too. So I don't know if it's similar, because I feel like a dictator, warlike version of Picard in this timeline would not have chosen a body that will die normally. It'll let you die when you're normally supposed to. I would feel like a warlord Picard would be like, give me some badass body with chainsaws and that's never going to die, but I guess that's left to be seen. Next, the Klingon skull. So this is a way of showing Klingons without having to deal with are they going to look like the horrible monsters from Discovery, or are they going to look like Klingons that we know from TNG? Instead of kind of trying to bridge that gap, it's just a skull. You can't really tell. That's Martok, again, from DS9, big player over there. And then the skull that looks basically human, they say, is Sarek, Picard's friend from our timeline. Except, these are all people that Picard killed. Apparently he killed Sarek right in front of who I'm assuming is Spock, because they mentioned in front of a bunch of Vulcans, as well as his wife and son. Now, I don't know how long ago this is, so I'm not sure which wife it would be. But I'm assuming that son is supposed to be Spock. No mention of a daughter or another son, so I don't know if his, Spock's brother might have been the son he mentioned. Probably not. And no mention of a sister or a daughter, so Michael Burnham probably doesn't exist, at least in that capacity in this timeline. Again, I think some of the other skulls in the background that weren't mentioned could have been Gorn, maybe a Zindi reptilian. They didn't really mention anything about who they were, just, some interesting looking races back there. Then the CSS Enterprise, which I don't know if it's called the Enterprise, because later on he mentions that he kind of was a huge hero to the Confederation with the CSS World Razor, which I took to me the equivalent of the Stargazer, World Razor Stargazer, but the picture they showed was a souped-up Enterprise, extra cannons. The saucer section looked like it was more Sovereign class, more advanced, so I don't know if that's supposed to be the World Razor or not, but they showed a nice painting of it. The quote they kept repeating throughout this, said by various individuals, is "A safe galaxy is a human galaxy." Don't know if that's going to lead anywhere, but they kept repeating it as the catchphrase and the propaganda throughout the land. He orders his normal drink. Of course, it's not tea Earl Grey black. It's Colombian roast coffee black. Did I say hot? I meant hot for the Earl Grey. So the coffee instead of tea, because he's a hard man. He doesn't drink fancy tea. I guess that's what it is. Then they finally get to the point of Laris and Siobhan, his Romulan friends, potential love interest from the other timeline. They both died because they were freedom fighters for Romulus, and he probably killed them because he kills everybody in this time period, this timeline. Not really sure if he did, but I think that was the implication. So there's, that's basically what happens with Picard. Then we kind of skip over, he's going to Eradication Day. That's actually the holiday that they're celebrating. So this kind of seems like a similar plot progression of what happened in Season 1. Episode 1 of Season 1, he's kind of puttering around, giving a speech at Starfleet. This, similar situation. He's at his vineyard. He has to go to Starfleet to give a speech for a special day. It was the anniversary of the synth destruction of Mars in Season 1. This is Eradication Day, where, they're going to do some special stuff. We'll get to that later. So then we cut over to not Seven of Nine, regular, unassimilated Annika Hansen. Turns out she is the president of Earth, the Confederation. I'm not sure if they ever really made it clear what she was the president of, but I think everything, period. I don't think there's a difference here between, like, Starfleet and the Federation in our time. I think everything is under the umbrella of the Confederation, but that wasn't really explained as far as I could tell. So she does a little thing which I actually liked. She does, a mirror pops up, she notices her implant's gone. She does a little self-check, which reminded me a little bit of in Voyager when she got cut off from the crew and she went a little, a little unsure of herself. She was alone and she got a little, okay, check myself. I'm feeling things, I'm, smelling things. If this was a dream, I wouldn't be smelling things. I liked that scene. It kind of gave her a little bit of a personality quirk that kind of seemed like it made sense with her going forward. Find out she's married to a guy, her chief, I don't think it's her chief of staff, it's Regent, I'm not sure what he was, but he's like kind of also high up in the hierarchy. So he walks in, says that she's got to give a speech for this eradication day. She kind of freaks out a little bit, but sort of covers it up, accidentally drops the word Federation instead of Confederation, which seems to raise some eyebrows. I don't know why that would really be that big of a deal, because it's just like she left off 3 letters, or they wouldn't be aware of such a thing as a Federation, but that's just my take on it. Then she wants to get a briefing from, the war effort that's going on against Vulcan, I believe. So they're like, oh, we'll get you on the line with General Sisko, which I assume is regular Captain Sisko, not Jake Sisko. Honestly, he's probably pretty similar to what he was in our time frame because, he was kind of a badass there too. So I'm guessing he's just more badass, less ethical, without the morals of the Federation, which he, had to kind of drop during the war anyways. Moving on, she decides to call, oh my god, why can't I think of his name? The, captain guy. I want to say Rafi. No. Santiago? No. Well, I can't remember his name. That's terrible. But the main guy, Cabrero Santiago, in real life, I can't remember his character's name right now. So she calls him instead. He is captaining I don't know if they gave a name, the La Serena from our timeline. I don't know if that's still what it's called. Not sure why they are even using that kind of ship in a war, because it was kind of built as a speedy getaway thiefy freighter in the normal timeline, so why it would be built the same way when it's a more militaristic timeline, I don't know, but that's what he's captaining. They're attacking and trying to kill Vulcan. Really liked seeing the more advanced version of the Vulcan ships, kind of similar to what we saw in Enterprise, but obviously further advanced. Again, loved the fleet from last season, or last episode of Starfleet. This was cool seeing some more recognizable looking ships instead of the unrecognizable stuff we see a lot in the new version of Star Trek. So that whole thing is dealt with there. Then they kind of switch to Earth, where there's a terrorist attack going on in Okinawa. Eleanor has a plot exposition girlfriend, lives about 15 seconds to basically tell him exactly what his plot points are. Like, it was really bad, just kind of like, here, I'm going to read your description off the script, and then immediately get shot and die, just so you know what's going on. And I mean, that was real bad. Then Michelle Hurd's character Rafi shows up. She's the one hunting Eleanor. So far, all of our normal characters from the show, we'll meet Jurati shortly, are really, really influential players in this new timeline. I'm assuming that's because whoever's in control of what happened kind of placed them there. Otherwise, if this was just a random timeline that developed and all of our main players just happened to be in huge positions of power, it kind of is real bad. It's kind of a bad storytelling technique that they would all just happen to end up in places where they could actually affect the story. Picard wouldn't have just died when he was 12, or Annika Hansen is a school teacher and wouldn't be able to get them out of this situation. So I'm assuming whoever created this timeline made sure that they were key players so that they could actually have a point and do whatever they're supposed to accomplish. if that's not the case, I hate that they're all just so influential. Another thing I'm wondering is it only people close to Picard that came to this new timeline? Are the rest of the crews from all those other ships that blew up, are they suddenly waking up in alternate lives and freaking out, or not? Because, it's not like they contacted, again, the entire crew of, let's say, the Excelsior or the Stargazer. I'm sure they had first officers, they had, chief engineers, they had security officers, doctors. Are they all waking up in this timeline going, what the hell's going on? Or just people that Picard holds close to him? And again, why just this crew? If Q's doing this, why not all of Picard's old friends from the Next Generation? Why is Riker, why didn't he immediately, again, I get that they're not part of the show, but it seems like that would also be, somebody he might try to reach out to with this whole situation going on, or someone Q would know to bring with him, because, Q used to have a thing for Janeway, not that, she's related to Picard that much, but he had a thing for Riker for a while, so whatever. It's just, I know it's storytelling, they're not part of the show, but again, these are things that when you've got such a vast interconnected universe, you kind of feel like should be addressed. Then we go to Kat and Oswald at Girardi's place. So, cute, not emoji, sort of a chibi-looking anime-esque virtual assistant cat called Spot 73 that Girardi designed. I can't imagine the Spot wasn't a reference to Data's cat. Didn't look anything like Data's cat, but again, I'm assuming Data in his normal form didn't exist in this timeline, and it's just a reference that we're supposed to catch. One thing I do not like is a lot of the non-Starfleet people are wearing just like hoodies and wool caps, and it doesn't really feel like a futuristic society. It feels like here's Starfleet and here's some people wearing hoodies in the background. Again, just a little nitpick there. We find out that Girardi's got the Borg Queen. She, the Borg are dead except for her. That's the whole eradication day today. Picard's supposed to show up and ceremonially kill the Borg Queen in front of everyone. That's the big thing. She's, I guess, the last Borg alive. She's got some sort of technobabble thing that allows her to connect to multiple timelines. She knows something's wrong. She is not the Borg Queen. They make a point of saying this for some reason, that she's not the Borg Queen that took over the Stargazer last episode and came back with them. This is the normal timeline Borg Queen who just so happens to be able to trans-temporally connect with herself in the other timelines and know that this is not a multiversal world. This is a fractured time version of our own world. So again, they made that distinction for some reason. Not sure why they made that distinction, but they did. So anyways, they all come together here. Again, this is 2 episodes in a row where it's basically let's reassemble the team. Once in our timeline, now we're doing it in the other timeline, except they're the same people in this futuristic, fascist, Nazi, for lack of a better word, because that's even the colors and everything they're using. I think it's a very cheap, on-the-nose, heavy-handed way to do this, but if they're only doing it for an episode, I guess they really wanted to get that point across. It's not very subtle. It's very, very on the nose what they're doing with this other timeline and universe, like just using obvious cues. Not QQ, but Q is, the other word. Anyways, if they're only going to spend 1 episode in this timeline before going back in time and we're not seeing it, and I understand they don't want to build up this whole new mythology and everything, and they just want to use things that we as an audience would understand. But it does seem kind of lazy as far as that goes. I don't understand why the Borg Queen called Girardi a fragile teacup. I mean, doesn't seem like something the Borg Queen would say unless there's more to it, because I know she was also saying things last episode, different Borg Queen I know, like Picard, look up, things like that. So I don't know what's going on with the Borg Queen. She's seems like she's slipping out of character in brief moments, and I don't know if that's plot-related reasons or just she's saying things that don't kind of mesh with the way the Borg would talk in past. Then we see the big Adam Soong hologram. I think Adam Soong would not be alive anymore unless because he's the one that's supposed to be back in time in 2024. I could see, though, maybe he's, consistently been transferring his consciousness into new sense or something. We'll have to see there. They mentioned insurrection, call back to not the movie itself, call back to the title of the movie. Feel like that was just a nice, word they threw in there. Don't think it really had any meaning other than, insurrection is a word that reminds us of Star Trek. Then, this is another thing. They murder a lot of people in this episode, particularly Eleanor, and they make a joke out of it. When they're trying to escape later on in the episode, he just murders a bunch of people, and then Raffi looks at him, makes a joke. I know they haven't really shied away from killing people in Star Trek in the past when there's a need, when they're fighting enemies and stuff, but I don't know. And maybe they don't view this as a real timeline, so it doesn't matter to them. It just feels a little weird that, he's slitting throats of people and then making a joke out of it. Like, oh, well, Picard told me to, get out of this by any means necessary. Ha, ha, ha. I don't like that. I don't like the way they kind of treat life as insignificant jokes when it hasn't always been the case in Star Trek. But again, if they're not taking this as the real timeline, then I guess it doesn't really matter to them. So they show up at this big place to murder the queen, the Borg queen. Looks, I don't know if it's supposed to look reminiscent of the courtroom from when Q first showed up in the pilot of TNG, or if that's just kind of how it turned out. Kind of reminded me a little bit of that, but not really exactly. So maybe it was just supposed to be a callback. Somewhere on the La Sirena, there is a bulkhead that says CSN. Don't know what that means. I'm assuming like CSS, the ships, were CSS instead of USS. I don't know what CSN means. Is it supposed to be a joke like CNN? Maybe. I don't know. Just noticed it and thought it was interesting. Time travel is the only way to get out of this situation because the Borg Queen figures out that Los Angeles of 2024 is when the timeline fractured. They got to get there. Picard says that the only way to time travel they have at their disposal is the way the Enterprise did several times in the past, the Kirk's Enterprise, where they slingshot around the sun. I don't remember how many times they did it in the actual series. I think it was 2. The third time they did it, they were not in the Enterprise, they were in a Klingon bird of prey, but Spock was there every time. They say, well, we don't have a Spock to do the math for us, but we've got one better. We've got the Borg Queen. So they plot their daring escape by trying to rescue the Borg Queen. They go about their technobabble trying to bring down the shields so that the La Sirena can beam them up. And takes a while, blah, 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 blah. A lot of, hemming and hawing, like, oh, the shields aren't down yet. Oh, I can't beam you up. Uh-oh, Picard has to look like he's a traitor because we need an extra 10 seconds. So he shoots a bunch of guards, and then right in the nick of time, they get beamed up. So now they beam up, they plug the Borg Queen in, they're getting ready to make their escape, and Seven's husband, as well as some Starfleet guards who I thought at least one of them is the guy Eleanor killed, but I may be mistaken there. They show up, shoot Eleanor right in the chest. He looks like he's not dead, he's just suffering immensely. I don't know if it's going to kill him, or, I feel like their weapons are kind of designed to be more painful than ours. So I don't know if it's similar to that weapon from that one episode of, what is it called? The one where Data gets kind of kidnapped, and the guy shoots the gun that kind of disintegrates him from the inside. If it's something like that, I could feel that the militaristic future that they're in would design a weapon that way. But again, I don't know. So Eleanor gets shot. Everybody kind of freaks out that, oh no, things are not going well. We were just about to make our escape. Seven's husband kind of looks at Picard and says, I'm going to call you a traitor for rescuing a Borg. I mean, great. I don't think any of our characters care because they're not the characters from this timeline. I feel like he thought it was going to sting Picard and hurt him, but it just kind of was a weird, flat way to end the episode. Because that is the end of the episode. I have not watched the trailer for the next episode because I don't want to have that spoil my opinions of what happened. But overall, I think it was kind of a step back. Last episode, they gave us a lot of things that we wanted to see. I understand they're going to an alternate timeline, but it felt like, kind of a lateral move. We assembled our team last time. Now we spend this episode reassembling our team in a new time period that's not that unique and not that interesting because, we've seen authoritarian, alternate Nazi-esque futures in a heck of a lot of things. There was nothing particularly unique about this aside from the Q stuff at the beginning and a lot of, as they're called these days, member berries with, here's a mention of 32 characters and races from Star Trek, but they're not actually playing a point in the storyline. They're just here to kind of, if, they said, let's call General Sisko. If we see General Sisko, if he plays a role in the show, that's great. Just to throw his name out there, just kind of to make us go, huh? The same thing with, here's Gul Tagat, here's Martok, here's Sarek. They're not playing any role in the story. The characters themselves weren't in the story. They're just big references to these touchstones we know. And overall, that's not the kind of fan service that advances a storyline. So a couple of those an episode is great, but just tossing them in one after another and not involving them in the story is kind of weak to, build a world and advance a story. Anyways, I think overall, I still enjoyed the episode. I still have faith that this season is going to be overall enjoyable as long as they can stick the landing. A lot of these Star Trek seasons since they've come back have these overarching storylines, and the endings are never ever satisfactory. They're rushed. They don't, they're just kind of mumbo jumbo, and poof, we're done. I do feel that there is a sense that we are going on a journey that's actually interesting. So that's good for one. I hope it's not just once they get back in time to 2024, I'm kind of worried how it's going to feel because they're getting more and more removed from what we know in Star Trek. I obviously think that they're going to reference the 2024 stuff from DS9. Hopefully it's more than just a passing reference. If they actually involve it, that would be interesting. That would be cool. If it's just one reference that they showed in the trailer and it's not part of the story, again, that's part of the world building that doesn't sit well with me. Another thing that I don't really buy is, humans are this big aggressive species in this timeline. Obviously they're not really making alliances, building the Federation, bringing in. They mentioned Andor is gone, Cardassia is gone. We destroyed them all. I don't buy that. I don't think the Federation, the Confederation, with a similar type of technology to what our Federation had, could beat the Klingons. Like, even just the Klingons themselves. The Romulans, the Klingons, the Vulcans, the Andorians, I don't know if they mentioned the Tellarians. All of these other species that we systematically took out. I don't believe that from one planet that's half dead. We're not that strong compared to the Klingons or the Cardassians or heck, even the Vulcans. And why wouldn't they have made an alliance against these bastard humans from Earth at some point? I don't buy that one change in 2024 could have made humans such an aggressive and better species to destroy the world. Not the world, the galaxy. Without bringing in other resources and it's just I don't buy it. But that's the storyline. Maybe we had some help. Maybe like the Breen or the Nausicaans or something are backing us up. Heck, how do we take out the Borg just by ourselves? Again, none of this makes sense unless there's some big backstory of there's billions of synths out there under our control just destroying everything. Maybe that's it, but I don't buy that. Again, pretty big, I would say a pretty big step down from the first episode, but not enough to make me lose hope in the storyline, not enough to make me not have at least had a passing enjoyment this episode. I found the first season, by and large, I was, slogging through the episodes to get to the end. Even though I didn't really care for the world and thought it was kind of hokey, it was enjoyable. I did have fun from start to finish. Still hopeful to see where it goes, but it was a big step down. So don't lose hope if you're out there, thinking that it's going to crash and burn. It's possible it will, but so far, I'm still holding on. So until next time, do all the things that YouTube normally has you do, like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, dislike twice, dislike 4 times. Make sure it's an even number, though. Don't dislike once or 3 times, because that's not going to help anybody. So until next time, computer and program.